Lily Carson was only 6 years old when she stumbled out of the dark woods, barefoot and trembling, unaware that her escape would expose one of the most chilling secrets her own mother had buried beneath their quiet home. The night was darker than usual in Pinevale, a small town surrounded by whispering pines and endless backroads. The air was thick with fog, and only the distant hum of an engine broke the silence. That was when a driver noticed something unusual: a tiny figure walking barefoot along the side of the forest road. The headlights revealed a little girl, her face pale, her hair tangled, and her dress soaked with dirt and rain. She looked too weak to cry, clutching a torn teddy bear as if her life depended on it. The driver stopped, called for help, and stayed with her until the police arrived. That girl was 6-year-old Lily Carson. When officers wrapped her in a blanket, she wouldn't speak. Her lips trembled, her eyes darted around like she expected something or someone to appear from the shadows. The only sound she made was a small whisper that none of them could understand. At the hospital, doctors discovered bruises across her arms, small cuts on her legs, and a faint burn mark on her shoulder. She was clearly traumatized, but no one could guess what she had escaped from. When asked about her parents, Lily uttered one word in a trembling voice: "Gone." Police rushed to the Carson home on the edge of town, a small white house surrounded by overgrown weeds and silence. The front door was ajar, swinging gently in the cold wind. Inside, nothing seemed stolen, but there was a strange unease that hung in the air. A cup lay shattered near the kitchen sink, and muddy footprints trailed across the floor. When officers followed them to the backyard, they found smeared blood on the grass leading toward the woods. It wasn't much, but enough to suggest something terrible had happened there. Neighbors soon gathered behind the police tape, whispering in disbelief. Claire Carson, Lily's mother, had always seemed so kind, so gentle. She worked at the town library, always smiling, always polite. No one could imagine her being involved in anything violent. Yet as hours turned into days and Claire remained missing, doubts began to spread. What had happened inside that quiet house? Why was there no sign of a break-in? No sign of anyone else being there? All anyone knew for certain was that Lily had survived something unspeakable. And though she couldn't yet describe what she had seen, the fear in her eyes told everyone that the truth waiting to be uncovered would change Pinevale forever. In the days following the discovery, Pinevale became a town of suspicion and silence. Everyone who had once praised Claire Carson as the perfect mother now whispered her name with unease. To the outside world, Claire was gentle and warm, a devoted mother who always held Lily's hand when walking through town. She volunteered at the library, baked cookies for community events, and smiled at everyone she met. Yet beneath that calm exterior, small cracks had begun to show, ones no one had thought much about at the time. Teachers at Lily's preschool remembered strange things: days when Lily arrived with bruises that were quickly explained away as playground accidents. There were sudden absences too, when Claire claimed her daughter was sick or needed rest. No one wanted to doubt her. In Pinevale, everyone trusted everyone. But now, looking back, those little details began to feel like missed warnings. Police began piecing together Claire's last few days before she disappeared. She had withdrawn nearly all her savings, sold an old family heirloom to a pawn shop, and been seen purchasing survival gear from a hardware store. None of her actions fit her known personality. Her friends said she'd seemed distracted lately, often staring into space or muttering to herself. One coworker even mentioned hearing her say, "The time is coming soon," though no one knew what that meant. When investigators searched the Carson home more carefully, they uncovered something far stranger than expected. The basement, normally used for storage, had been repainted just a week earlier. The paint was uneven, and when they scraped it, dark stains began to seep through. Behind a pile of old furniture, they found a small wooden box containing photographs of Lily, hundreds of them. In each picture, the child looked frightened, confused, or in pain. But what caught their attention most were the notebooks stacked neatly beside the box. Each was labeled with a year, written in Claire's precise handwriting. Inside were pages filled with obsessive notes about Lily's development and correction methods. There were strange drawings of circles, arrows, and cryptic words like "purity through discipline" in the final test. The more they read, the more it became clear that Claire's love for her daughter had twisted into something dark and disturbing. What had once looked like devotion now seemed like control. And though no one could yet understand her motive, one truth grew certain: Claire Carson had been living a double life, and Pinevale had never really known her at all. Lily's recovery was slow, but with time, pieces of her memory began to return like fragments of a broken mirror. At first, she only remembered flashes: the sound of rain hitting leaves, the smell of smoke, and the image of her mother's hands holding a small lantern in the dark. Doctors said her mind was protecting her from something too painful to recall all at once. But soon, her memories started forming a clearer picture of what had happened on the night she was found. She remembered waking up in the middle of the woods, cold and alone. The sky above her was orange with firelight, and in the distance, she heard an explosion echo through the forest. The ground shook, birds scattered into the air, and Lily ran, clutching her stuffed bear as tightly as she could. She called for her mother, but no one answered. Eventually, she wandered until she reached the road where the driver found her. It seemed like a nightmare a child could never have survived, yet she did. When police followed her descriptions, they found something chilling. Deep in the forest, hidden by thick trees, was a burned-out car. The license plate matched Claire Carson's vehicle. Inside were the remains of a body, burned beyond recognition. Investigators believed at first that Claire had taken her own life, ending the story in tragedy. But when the forensic results came back, everything changed. The body wasn't hers. The teeth had been tampered with, some replaced with false dental work. Whoever had burned in that car had been staged to look like Claire. Meanwhile, Lily's drawings began to tell stories she couldn't yet say aloud. She drew her house, the basement door, and a figure standing in the dark. One picture showed her mother digging holes under the big oak tree behind their home. Acting on these drawings, detectives decided to dig at the exact spot Lily pointed to. What they unearthed was worse than anyone imagined. Beneath the soil were human remains: 3 sets of bones, carefully buried. None of them matched Claire or Lily. For a town that once thought it knew peace, Pinevale suddenly felt like a place built on secrets. Lily had led them to the truth without realizing it. Her innocent memories were exposing something monstrous, and the real question now wasn't what had happened to Claire Carson, but what she had done before she disappeared. The discovery of the buried remains turned the Carson investigation into a full-scale manhunt. Forensic experts worked day and night to identify the victims, and soon chilling connections began to surface. Each of the 3 women had gone missing within the past 5 years, all from towns within driving distance of Pinevale. There seemed to be no link between them: different ages, different backgrounds, until investigators noticed one shared detail. Every single one of them had visited the Pinevale library, where Claire Carson had worked quietly for nearly a decade. Detectives began digging deeper into Claire's life, searching for any trace of who she had really been. Her online presence was almost non-existent. No social media, no family photos, no digital trail beyond her job and a few old school records. It was as if she had spent her life erasing herself piece by piece. When the notebooks from her basement were re-examined, a disturbing theory began to form. Her writings spoke of broken women and corrupt mothers, describing how they needed to be cleansed for the sake of their children. Investigators realized the horrifying possibility that Claire had been targeting women she believed were unfit mothers, luring them in with kindness before turning on them. As authorities pieced it together, more evidence emerged. In a storage unit rented under a fake name, they found a collection of personal belongings belonging to the missing women: jewelry, driver's licenses, and family photographs. Each item had been labeled and stored like trophies, but among them was something even more disturbing: a series of old VHS tapes. On the faded labels were dates and single words like test, lesson, and trial. The tapes, though badly damaged, showed glimpses of the women, scared and restrained, with Claire's voice faintly audible in the background, speaking in calm tones about purification. The most haunting discovery came from one tape that featured Lily. She was younger in the footage, sitting silently in a chair while her mother spoke behind the camera. Claire's voice described her as the one who must endure to rise above the rest. The video cut off just as Claire began walking toward the child. Investigators were left speechless. Claire had not only been a serial killer but had turned her own daughter into the center of her twisted obsession. The night in the woods now appeared to have been the final stage of her plan, an experiment in survival. But something had gone wrong. Claire had vanished, leaving Lily alive, and the secret she'd tried to bury was finally coming to light. Months passed, but the shadow of Claire Carson still hung over Pinevale. Detectives followed every lead, tracing reports of a woman using false identities across several states. Each time they got close, she slipped away. It became clear that Claire had planned her disappearance for years, leaving behind a maze of fake documents, burner phones, and storage units. She was methodical, intelligent, and terrifyingly patient. Even in her absence, she seemed to control the story, as if every clue had been placed deliberately to keep them chasing ghosts. Meanwhile, Lily began her new life under protective care. She rarely spoke, but her drawings told stories that words could not. She drew forests burning, faces with no eyes, and a woman watching from behind trees. Therapists believed she was reliving memories rather than imagining them. Over time, she began to speak small fragments of the truth: how her mother had taken her into the woods that night, telling her it was time for the final test. Claire had lit a fire, told her to stay still, and walked into the darkness. Moments later, the explosion had torn through the trees. When the smoke cleared, her mother was gone. As investigators reviewed the evidence, they realized Claire's plan had been to fake her death completely. The burned body in the car was one of her earlier victims, carefully planted with false dental records to convince everyone she had perished. It was a manipulation so precise that it almost worked. The only reason it didn't was because of Lily, because the 6-year-old survived and led them to the truth her mother tried to erase. Years later, Lily's story became the subject of documentaries, books, and online discussions. People called her the girl who escaped the perfect mother. Yet fame never brought her peace. She lived under a new name, still haunted by nightmares of whispers and smoke. Some said she drew the same picture over and over: a woman's silhouette standing in the distance, always facing away. Then, one night, a letter arrived at the Pinevale Police Department. It was postmarked from another state. Inside was a single photograph of a little girl standing near a park fountain, and behind her, blurred but unmistakable, was Claire Carson. The message written on the back said only 3 words: "She remembers me."